We were going to be covering Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders' rallies and speeches tonight, but both campaigns have canceled their events in Ohio because of the coronavirus outbreak there. So we're going to put out this video, which is going to be a deeper dive into Joe Biden's viral moment today, which was when he cursed out an auto worker while he was touring a plant. And we're going to do a deeper dive into the policies that Joe Biden is proposing when it comes to gun control. So let's watch the video and then we'll pick it apart a little bit.
And you are actively trying to diminish your Second Amendment right and take away our gun.
You're full of shit. Now, shush. Shush. I support the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. From the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my son's hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were in Beto and you said you're going to take our guns,
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video.
It's a viral video like the other ones they're putting out that are simply a lie.
Your voice, you said that you're taking the gun.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait. Take your AR-14s and what?
Okay, this is not okay.
Hold on. Hey, let's
Don't
get
tell me all
moving.
this, pal. We're gonna go
There's a
outside
lot of
with you.
guys want to.
I'm not worried.
Thanks so much.
Give me a
Thank
break,
you so
man.
much.
Don't be such a
You're
worry
pushing up
guy.
on me.
Hey, there's a lot of
Hey. Look, here's the deal.
Go ahead, go.
Here's the deal. Are you able to own a machine gun?
I own a machine
I
gun.
said, are you able to own one? Under law.
Machine guns are illegal.
That's right. So AR-15's illegal.
How is that in a machine gun?
No, it's not.
Semi-automatic.
Yeah, do you need 100 rounds? Do you need 100 rounds?
In America with handguns and there are what you call assault rifles. Why are you advocating for assault rifles when people are buying a handgun?
And they usher him away. Okay, so a few things straight up. This is really cool. We put out the video of Joe Biden and Beto O'Rourke at that Whataburger where Joe Biden looked in the camera and said, obviously this is now debatable because of fact checks. Either he is coming for them, our guns, or if he wins, he's coming for Beto to implement his gun control policy, which would be still coming for our guns. So this is pretty cool seeing the video that we put out in the real world, this guy now confronting Biden on it in person. So let's pick this apart a little bit because Biden is kind of using these dog whistle terms for his own supporters and hoping that the average American doesn't understand what he's actually saying. So here, Joe Biden's breaking the number one rule of politics. When you're going around stumping and trying to get votes, don't insult and curse at the people you want to vote for you. Don't wave your hand in front of his face and get all on his business. It was also remarkable how he shushed his own assistants who were clearly trying to diffuse the situation and get him somewhere else. But Joe Biden's main point is that he said he wasn't coming for anyone's guns, but then he clarified and said, yes, he is coming for some people's guns if you own an AR-14, which is another one of those Biden gaffes. There was an AR-14. It was an Armalite Model 14. I don't believe it went into full production, but there was a such thing as an AR-14, but that's not what he's talking about. He just doesn't know the gun that he actually wants to ban. He gets into this argument with the guy over do you need 100 rounds? Why should you own an AR-15? AR-15s are machine guns. It's complete bull. An AR-15 is a semi-automatic firearm. Every single trigger pull means one bullet down the barrel. That technology has existed in the United States since the 1800s. The late 1800s is when the first semi-automatic shotguns, and I think pistols might have been a little bit later, but shotguns definitely, when this technology started rolling out. So when you hear Joe Biden saying that no American should be allowed to own this technology, realize that Americans have been owning these kinds of guns, not the AR-15 because that's a later design, but they've been owning semi-automatic firearms since the late 1800s. This is not new. But then Joe Biden tries to muddy the waters and say, well, can you own a machine gun? This guy, honestly, kudos for him. It takes a lot of guts to go up to a former vice president, and challenge him like this. This guy says that machine guns are illegal. That's actually not the case. In Michigan, it is legal to own a machine gun. You just have to go through the National Firearms Act. And state law, you have to actually submit to the background check, the extra ATF background check. You have to pay your tax stamp, and you have to register it with the government. But it still is legal to own a machine gun. Joe Biden makes this claim that no right is absolute. And he's right, no right is absolute. When the founders wrote that you have the right to keep and bear arms, they meant arms that are that you can hold in your hand and that an infantryman can use. So that obviously includes knives, swords. The Supreme Court has ruled that it includes stun guns, right? It includes firearms. It does not include, for example, artillery. Since, according to the Supreme Court in Heller versus DC in 2008, a piece of artillery wouldn't fall under this necessarily because you cannot bear a piece of artillery. You cannot carry that around on your person. So when he says it's not absolute, he's right. It is not absolute. But then he uses this old and tired argument that it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater. Now, that is, I don't know if we have enough time to parse through that all, but first of all, it is not illegal to yell fire in a crowded theater. That is false. You can go into a theater and you can yell fire when there is an actual fire. Key difference. If you yell fire with the intent to cause mayhem and to cause alarm when there is not a fire, then that is where crimes come into play. You are trying to start a panic. You are trying to start a stampede, right? That is where it becomes a criminal act. But if you're in a movie theater and you see a fire, you are well within your rights to yell fire. That's an important clarification because people like to throw this out that you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And they use that to try and support their gun control arguments. When you take that logic and you bring it to the Second Amendment, that doesn't mean... so when you go into a theater, you don't have to wear a muzzle, right? No one's forcing you to be muzzled. No one's fining you if you open your mouth and try and speak. People who go to theaters are trusted that you're not going to be talking through the movie, annoying people around you, and that you're not going to abuse your First Amendment rights and cause a scene, cause a rush to the exits by falsely yelling fire. We trust people that they will not break the law like this. We do not force everyone to wear a muzzle going into the theater. That would just be ridiculous, right? But when it comes to the Second Amendment, the same kind of principle applies. Just because it is illegal for someone to use a firearm in the commission of a crime does not mean that it should also be illegal for law-abiding citizens to use those same firearms. And if you're in a situation where your life is at risk, or you are trying to save someone else's life, or even in some states you want to protect your property, yes, you can use that firearm against another person, just like you can in certain circumstances yell fire in a crowded theater. So that's why I get really amped up about this kind of line of attack, because it's really preying on ignorance. It's preying on the general public's ignorance. Say, oh yeah, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, so that means that whatever Joe Biden wants to do makes sense. Not at all. This is bogus. It's not a legitimate argument. But then Joe Biden goes on and he says the AR-14s, yada, yada, yada. You don't need 100 rounds. Again, not really what we're talking about here. And then he starts actually saying that semi-automatic firearms are on the table. As we said, those firearms date back to the late 1800s, those kinds of firearms. This guy stands his ground and he starts saying, well, more murders are committed each year with handguns than assault rifles, assault weapons. Why are you going after those? And at that point, Joe Biden, in kind of like in his little stupor, gets pushed away by his aides and he's going to go talk to someone a little bit more friendly. But this is the big point. Joe Biden is on tape saying that, bingo, I'm coming for your guns if I'm elected. He tries to make it out that it's going to just be AR-15s, but that's actually not true. We've talked about this a little bit in another video, but I want to cover it more right now. So this is S66. This is the most recent form of the assault weapons ban that has been introduced by Dianne Feinstein and other Democrats. This is the best example that we have of what Democrats would do if they were elected. Now, honestly, this bill was introduced with a Republican president. I have a feeling if they controlled the House and the Senate and the presidency, this bill would get a lot stricter. It would get a lot tougher because they wouldn't have to appear to be moderate, right? They would have their way. They'd be able to push whatever they want through. And of course, when they don't really care about offending the middle or the right, they're going to go farther to the left on the legislation. So this bill, though, still provides us the best example of what Joe Biden means when he's talking about banning assault weapons. So here we go. We can just start right from the beginning. A semi-automatic rifle that has the capacity to accept a detachable magazine and has at least one of the following. And it lists a pistol grip, a forward grip, a folding, telescoping, let me scroll it up, folding, telescoping, detachable stock, some kind of stock that you can move to adjust, a grenade launcher, a barrel shroud, or a threaded barrel. That is the definition of a copycat assault weapon. Then, obviously, they go into semi-automatic pistols, a threaded barrel, a second pistol grip, which actually you cannot... It gets really complicated with how the law actually handles that. But without the proper ATF paperwork, if you put a second grip on a pistol, at least a second vertical grip, you can have an angled grip on a pistol and it'd be okay. But if you were to put a second vertical grip onto a pistol, you'd be breaking the law without the proper paperwork from the ATF. But still, it's in there. A barrel shroud, if you can accept a detachable magazine outside of the pistol grip, so like an AR or an AK pistol, a semi-automatic version of an automatic firearm, that's interesting. A manufactured weight of 50 ounces or more. Now, what that's going after is big guns like the Desert Eagle, which weigh a lot, or a stabilizing brace or a similar component. Now, that's interesting because those braces were designed to help actually disabled veterans be able to fire handguns one-handed. So a lot of people need two hands to fire certain handguns, certain pistols. These stabilizing braces were designed specifically to make it easier to fire it one-handed for people who only have one hand or one arm. So it's interesting that they're going after that. And then also they go after semi-automatic shotguns, which is a folding stock, pistol grip, the ability fixed magazine that holds more than 5 rounds, a detachable magazine, forward grip, or in the weird world that they live in, a shotgun with a grenade launcher, or any shotgun with a revolving cylinder. Those characteristics define millions of guns. They define millions of guns. Without even naming them by name, those cover millions, tens of millions of firearms in this country. But not to be outdone, then the bill goes on and it lists all of these types of firearms. I think we went through this the other day and it was 9 pages. Not just an AK or an AR-15. He's not just coming for your AR-15s. They list a bunch of these in here, all different, but also an SKS. An SKS is a Soviet Cold War weapon that was made in the 50s. That's when it was designed. These are not modern firearms. When you look at this and you see that it includes a 1950s design that the Soviet Union actually ditched for the AK-47 because it wasn't a good enough design, you start seeing just how radical these proposals are. Setme sporters. Setme was made by, that was a Spanish design, right? Spanish, I think it was the 1970s. There are people running around with Setmes shooting up schools. The Beretta Storm, that's a pistol caliber carbine. The High Point carbine. Again, you just go down the list. The Tavor, the Galil, those are Israeli guns. Tommy guns, as if people are just running around like it's prohibition, shooting up, I don't know, police stations with Tommy guns, Uzis. It goes down the list. And that's just rifles. Then you get to pistols, where they're naming pistols by name. Most of these are AR or AK style pistols, but you're also seeing Galil pistols. The 6-hour P556, that's an AR kind of style pistol. Then you get into actual kinds of shotguns, which these were imported. All of these shotguns that were imported into the United States were imported as sporting shotguns, which is interesting. That list is a lot smaller. And then you have belt-fed M249s, which are really, there are some out there, but they're really not a thing. I mean, they're collector's items. The point is that when you see Joe Biden in that video talking to that guy and saying that he's just coming for your AR-14, he's lying, right? This shows that they're going after many, many, many more guns. It's not just AR-14s. They're going after pistols, they're going after shotguns, and they're going after rifles. They're going after tens of millions of firearms. Under this bill, you wouldn't be forced to surrender them to the government. You just wouldn't be able to transfer them or buy any more. But there are Democrats who want to force you to hand all of these guns into the government. There is no rhyme or reason to this list. There is no justification for why one gun is allowed and one gun isn't. On this list is the Mini 14 Tactical. Let's see if we can find it. It's in the where are we? Mossberg Tactical. Let's do a Control F. Yeah, here we go. Storm and Ruger Mini 14 Tactical. Notice how they've gone out of their way to put tactical rifle on that. Now, the tactical version has some black plastic, and it has some different rail systems on it for you to attach a flashlight or whatnot, or another grip or whatnot. They aren't banning the Mini 14, they're just banning the tactical version of it. So if you want to buy a Mini 14 under this bill, and you're willing to have a wooden stock, that looks more like a hunting rifle, you'd be fine. Right? There's no rhyme or reason to this at all. This is just a list. It's like the past 20 years, Democrats have been just keeping note of all the guns they think look really, really scary and adding them to this list in hopes that eventually they can just ban them all. But I want to show you something because the definition of pistol is really important and something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about and covering because if the majority of the American people knew just how radical this definition was when it comes to pistols, I don't think that they would support this at all. Okay, I just ran to grab my handgun. It is, let's just check and make sure it's not loaded. No magazine. This is an FNX 45 Tactical. This is the gun that I use actually for home defense. I use it for when I'm out hunting. If I'm worried about bears. I use it when I'm going on car trips. This is a 45 caliber handgun. It has a 15 round magazine. I bought it in the state of Colorado, passed a background check and everything. It also has a threaded barrel. Now, I particularly like that because I own a suppressor and it's fun to shoot. But this threaded barrel right here would ban this gun. The gun that I use for home defense, the gun that I use in defense of my car when I'm on long car trips, and the gun that I use out in the wilderness when I'm hunting if I'm worried about bears because it shoots 45 caliber and has a pretty large magazine. That gun would be banned under this bill. It'd be banned. If Bernie Sanders had his way, not only would it be banned, but I'd have to turn them in, right? If Beto O'Rourke had his way, I'd have to sell that back to the government and I get pennies on the dollar for it. Otherwise, I become a felon. So I bring this up because when Joe Biden is trying to pass this off as he's only talking about AR-15s, it's a bigger deal than that. Listen, I own multiple AR-15s. I love my AR-15s. I've hunted with AR-15s. I target shoot. I have one for my home defense. I love AR-15s. But this isn't just about AR-15s. This bill would ban home defense handguns simply because they have a threaded barrel. So it's a big deal, right? Joe Biden's lying to the American people. He's trying to fearmonger and claim that it's only about AR-15s when it's not. We know it's about more than that. So I guess we can leave the video here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Joe Biden's going to get away with this? Personally, I think that this was a pretty big snafu on his part. I think that obviously we'll see with the poll results, with the results in Michigan, whether or not this had an impact. I don't think it probably will because they've been early voting for a while. But what do you think? Do you think that Joe Biden's going to be able to keep getting away with this claim that he's only come after AR-15s? Do you think that the American people will buy it? Let me know in the comments below, and please remember to subscribe, hit the little bell so you can receive future updates.